What's your damn I'm a badass moment? I went on a snorkeling trip off the coast of Kauai. There was a newlywed couple there that I could tell weren't good in the water. We're out in the water and they're off by themselves, and I can see that the wife is crying and the husband has a panicked look on his face. Turns out they didn't realize that skin contracts in water and he lost his wedding ring off his finger. I scan around for a while and find it 30 feet down or so. I run down and get it and give it back to them. They were thrilled. Nothing like that King Triton feeling. I used to do this kind of thing all the time as a dive master and a lifeguard, probably recovering around 50 things for customers over the years. I once freed of 95 feet for a GoPro, made it look real easy but definitely thought I was going to black out. I share mine with my dog. Did the adrenaline pumping, car lift thing. My idiot neighbor was trying to change his own oil, and didn't have the jack in the proper place. Whatever metal it was on, bent, and the car lowered onto him. Which had his body positioned perfectly so the front tire would crush his dumb ass. My dog was out back and started going insane barking, so I bolted outside, wondering what could be wrong. He only barks when something's wrong, like my kid left the yard or something. I see my neighbor's legs sticking out from his freaking tire, race inside screaming for my brother, then bolt back out and try to lift the car. My brother comes out and as I somehow manage to lift the car just enough, he pulls the neighbor out. I was expecting him to be dead, but he stood up, coughed a few times, and said thanks. We called EMS to get him checked and they took him to the hospital. He had some internal injuries, but survived and recovered fully. What I remember most is flopping to my butt in the driveway, thinking, shit. That guy is an idiot. It was my brother that said I'm a badass. And as the real hero, yes, Doggo got all the pats and scritches and treats. Life pro tip, always use jack stands and not a jack if you're going to be under a car. And don't cheap out on them. They are there to save your life. Chucked a piece of cardboard at a recycling bin at work. It was about 30 feet from me. A draft caught it and took it 40 feet up and it did a double loop before slamming directly into the bin. One old lady saw and went, well, felt like a fucking champion all day. All day? Bro, I'd ride that high for the rest of my life. You should have done the shushing face gesture at her to make her think you have superpowers. Not as cool as some of the others here, but I was running through a building, down a ramp with polished cement floors, and I somehow ended up falling down on one knee. With my high momentum I managed to slide all the way down the ramp, it was very long, and then kick myself back up into running again. It all happened completely smoothly and it felt like an action scene. Ni, how are you now? When I was in elementary school, we'd sit in the cafeteria and wait for the bus number to be called. On one particular day, I was ready to go home. I grabbed my bag and ran for that fucking door. Unbeknownst to me, right in my path after I turned the corner, about halfway down the ramp to the bus lane, was a wet floor sign and a bucket of some kind. I was running too fast to stop myself, and there were kids on either side of me, so I did the only logical thing, I jumped it like it was a hurdle. Cleared it without knocking over the sign, and landed about 4 or 5 feet down the ramp with a cool for a 7-year-old, 3-point touch. This was literally the coolest thing I've done in 12 years of school. Except maybe the time when I was in middle school where I raced the fucking wind to snag my kite after the line got torn from my hands. I got that bloody kite back, too. I saved my husband's life using the Heimlich maneuver, on the first try, never having done it before. This is the fucking thing about the Heimlich that always sorta trips me out. Everyone more or less has been told at some point in their life how to do the Heimlich, but there's no real training for it to see if what you've been told translates into an effective maneuver. The only way to know is in the moment, that moment, where someone is choking and they are going to die unless you manage to apply all of that instruction correctly on the first time. The Heimlich maneuver is like one of the all-time most insane high-stakes situations you can be in. Big ups to you for getting it right the first try. I have a few moments that make me feel good about myself, but I'm going to talk about this because it happened when I was like 22, and it was one of my first time an adult and I'm not half bad at it moments. Was driving back really late after hanging with some friends, like 2 in the morning. It's raining really hard and the roads are dangerously slick. Some guy, well he less turns than slides onto the road ahead of me, going up this massive hill with a steep grade, and he isn't controlling his car well. I see him fishtail a couple times but barely regain control, so I back way off and slow down. Not sure if he was drunk or just the rain, but I think to myself he's gonna lose it, and sure enough when I round the next corner, there he is in the deep ditch. He was gunning the wheels and spewing mud and grass everywhere, but obviously couldn't get out like that, and I'm sure his adrenaline was wrecking any chance at slow rational thought because he just went over a tiny cliff. I pulled over, got out in the rain waving my arms to get him to stop, told him what to do, go as slow as possible, angle the wheels the right way, but I noticed his hands shaking and ended up asking him to get out. I managed to get his car out of the ditch, but when I went to give him back his keys I see his whole body is visibly shaking from the shock, so I offered to give him a hug. We hugged for what felt like 10 minutes, it was probably just a minute, and he started crying, I assume just that wave of relief after an adrenaline rush. He wasn't drunk, or it wasn't apparent, but he's clearly not okay to drive, so when I thought he'd let most of it out I asked where he lived, which was just up the road a little ways. I checked that his car was okay to drive for a bit, that the radiator wasn't busted, etc., told him to get in and drove him to his place, walked him inside and told him to not drive until the next day and to get his undercarriage checked. Walked back to my car in the rain and went home. Edit, typo. That is fucking badass. You are badass. Well done. Amazing, my man. But for the sake of a noob driver, could you explain exactly how to properly get your car out of a ditch in the unfortunate event it happens? I didn't think how cool/good it was at the moment, but when I was like 5 or 6 a woman covered in blood crawled to my childhood house door and started banging on it. I woke up from the noise and went to open it. When I opened it, I just saw her in cuts, scratches, bruises, etc. Apparently her boyfriend was trying to actually kill her and she managed to escape. She asked to be let in for safety and I let her in and went to go wake up my mom. When she came out she was shocked to see her and went to clean her wounds a bit and later called the police and ambulance. I didn't fix her wounds or anything, but I'd like to think that I saved her life that day. Lol. You were 6. I didn't fix her wounds or anything. It's still super badass, but that would have just been miraculous. Oh, you definitely saved her life. And yes, you were a little badass. Start of UK lockdown, my dishwasher broke down and since shops were closed, I was looking at minimum 3 months of doing the dishes by hand. Fuck that. Went to YouTube, watched a bunch of videos, took the pump apart and found a piece of broken glass which was fucking it up. Put it back together, worked perfect, fuck you entropy and washing dishes. My dad does this kind of stuff constantly. Lamau. Something in our house breaks, he calls a repair person who tells him the problem is either extremely hard or impossible to fix, spends a day or 2 watching YouTube videos about the problem, fixes it, and then doesn't stop bragging about it for the next few weeks. Imagine being so lazy that you unlazy yourself for a moment so you can be lazy later. I just relocated and extended the outdoor water tap for my 70-year-old widowed neighbor, and when I turned the water back on nothing leaked. Felt kind badass. Edit, this made my day. Smile, thanks for the comments. She's thrilled she can now water her tomatoes. Kind of badass. I would literally tell everyone I know, and strangers in line at the grocery store, if I had managed to pull that off. This was such a wonderful thing to do, it choked me up a bit. My father passed away suddenly last year, non-COVID related, and my mom is around the age of 70, lives alone now. I would feel such relief knowing a caring person like yourself was nearby to keep an eye on her. Badasses come in many flavors, you are the sweet kind, the best kind. Subscribe for more hot Reddit takes in your inbox, guaranteed.